watched my stepmother steal everything my father built.
Welcome to Cheating Story Exposed. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story. Every day we uncover the truth, one secret at a time. I used to believe that blood was thicker than water. That family meant something. That when you spent 30 years building something from nothing, the people who claimed to love you would honor that. I was wrong about a lot of things. But I was right about one thing. My father was always the smartest man in any room, even after he left it. My name is Adrian, and this is the story of how I almost lost everything my father built, how my stepmother tried to steal his legacy, and how a man I'd never met walked into a boardroom and changed my life in under 5 minutes. It started on a Tuesday in March. I remember because I was supposed to present our Q2 projections to the board that afternoon. Instead, I got a call from Mercy General Hospital at 6:47 a.m. My father, Harrison Caldwell, founder and CEO of Caldwell Industrial Solutions, had collapsed in his home office. Massive coronary event. He was 64 years old. He died before I made it to the hospital. I won't pretend we had a perfect relationship. My dad was demanding, sometimes cold, always working, but he taught me everything about the business. I'd started in the warehouse at 16, worked every department, earned my MBA while managing operations. For the last 8 years, I'd been COO. Everyone knew I was being groomed to take over. It was the plan. It had always been the plan. The funeral was massive, 300 people. Suppliers, clients, employees, competitors. Dad had built Caldwell Industrial from a 2-person machine shop in 1989 into a $70 million enterprise with 200 employees across 4 states. He was respected, even feared a little. People showed up. My stepmother, Vivian, played the grieving widow perfectly. She'd married my dad 4 years earlier when I was 28 and she was 49. She was elegant, poised, always said the right thing. My mother had died when I was 12, and honestly, I'd been relieved when Dad finally found someone. He'd been alone too long. Vivian had never worked at the company. She'd been a regional manager at a pharmaceutical firm when they met, took early retirement after the wedding. She attended company events, played hostess, but stayed out of operations. That was fine. That was normal. The will reading was scheduled for the Friday after the funeral. Just immediate family, the executor said. That meant me, Vivian, and my half-sister Claire, who was 10 and lived with her mother in California. Dad's lawyer, a guy named Philip Meredith, who I'd met maybe twice, conducted the reading in his downtown office. I expected the standard setup. Vivian would get the house, a solid financial settlement, maybe some stock. Claire would have a trust for college. I'd get controlling interest in the company and the responsibility of running it. Maybe not 51% immediately, but enough to lead, with a path to full ownership. Philip Meredith opened a manila folder and began reading in that flat, legal voice they all use. The house went to Vivian. Expected. A $2 million life insurance payout went to Vivian. Generous, but fine. Claire's trust was $3 million. Good. Dad loved her, even if the divorce from her mom had been brutal. Then Meredith got to the company. I leave 51% controlling interest in Caldwell Industrial Solutions to my wife, Vivian Caldwell, along with the position of Chief Executive Officer and all associated authorities. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't process what I just heard. Vivian? CEO? She didn't know a lathe from a milling machine. She'd never read a P&L statement in her life. Meredith continued. I leave 30% of remaining shares to my son, Adrian Caldwell, contingent upon his acceptance of the position of junior. Strategy consultant reporting directly to the CEO. Junior, strategy. Consultant, I'd been COO. I'd negotiated our 3 largest contracts. I'd restructured our supply chain and saved the company $4 million over 2 years. I had an MBA from Northwestern. I'd given this company 12 years of my life, and I was being demoted to junior consultant. There must be a mistake, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from underwater. There's no mistake, Vivian said quietly. She wasn't looking at me. Your father's wishes were clear. When was this will dated? I asked Meredith. He glanced down. February 9th, about 3 weeks before his death. 3 weeks. Dad had changed his will 3 weeks before he died and never mentioned it. Never pulled me aside, never had a conversation, just quietly handed his life's work to someone who'd been in his life for 4 years. I'd like a copy of the will, I said. Of course. Meredith slid a bound document across the table. I should mention that the will also contains a no-contest clause. Any beneficiary who challenges the will forfeits their entire inheritance. I took the document home and read it 4 times. It was real. It was legal. It was notarized and witnessed. My father's signature was at the bottom, and I'd seen that signature on enough documents to know it was genuine. I didn't sleep that night. Monday morning, I drove to the office at 7 a.m., same as always. The parking spot that said COO next to the entrance had been repainted. It now said CEO V. Caldwell. Inside, I found a memo on everyone's desk. Vivian had sent it Friday afternoon, right after the will reading. It announced the new leadership structure. Vivian as CEO. Gregory Hammond, our CFO, was now also president. Linda Vasquez, who'd been head of sales, was now COO. And me? I wasn't mentioned. Not once I found Vivian in what had been my father's office. She'd already moved in. The photos of me and Claire on. The credenza were gone, replaced with abstract art. Adrian, she said, standing up. I was going to call you this morning. What the hell is this? I held up the memo. The new organizational structure. We need to move forward quickly. The company needs stable leadership. I was the COO, and now we need you in a strategic advisory role. Gregory and Linda have been with the company for over a decade. They understand the operations. I built half those operations. Adrian. Her voice was patient, like she was talking to a child. Your father made his wishes clear. I know this is difficult, but we have 200 employees depending on us. We can't afford internal conflict right now. So what, I'm just supposed to accept this? You can accept the consultant position at $140,000 annually with an office on the 2nd floor. Or you can walk away with your 30% as a silent partner. Your choice. $140,000. I'd been making $290 as COO, and an office on the 2nd floor where we kept the IT department and the break room. You can't do this, I said. Your father did this. I'm just honoring his wishes. She sat back down, opened her laptop. I have a meeting with Hammond in 10 minutes. Let me know your decision by end of day. I walked out before I said something I'd regret. I spent the next week in shock, going through the motions. I couldn't understand it. Dad had been grooming me to lead. He'd told me explicitly that Caldwell Industrial was my future. We'd had that conversation 100 times, and then he'd just erased me. I tried to find reasons. Maybe he thought I wasn't ready. Maybe he wanted me to prove myself from a lower position. Maybe he'd planned to change it back and died before he could. Nothing made sense. My friend Tyler, who was an attorney specializing in corporate law, took me to lunch that Thursday. I showed him the will. It's clean, he said after reading it, properly executed, recent, specific, and that no contest clause is bulletproof. If you challenge this, you lose everything. How does Vivian become CEO? She has 0 qualifications. Legally, ownership controls the board. She owns 51%. She can appoint herself to any position. Is it smart? No, but it's legal. What about minority shareholder rights? You have some. You can attend board meetings, vote on major decisions, receive financial reports. But you can't stop her from running the company into the ground if she wants to. Would he really do this? My father, Tyler shrugged. People do weird things at the end. Maybe he felt guilty about the divorce from Claire's mom. Maybe Vivian convinced him you weren't ready. Maybe he had reasons we'll never know. But I couldn't accept that. I knew my father. He was calculating, strategic, 3 steps ahead of everyone. He wouldn't hand his company to someone incompetent unless he had a reason. I started digging. The company had a document retention system that stored 7 years of digital files. I still had my access credentials, and nobody had revoked them yet. I spent my nights going through board meeting minutes, financial reports, correspondence. 2 things jumped out immediately. First, Dad had been having the company's legal work done by Philip Meredith for only about 8 months. Before that, we'd used a firm called Strauss and Associates for 20 years. I found an email from Dad to Meredith from last July. "Philip, I'm moving all personal and corporate legal matters to your office. Please coordinate with Strauss for file transfer." Why switch? Strauss and Associates had handled everything. Estate planning, corporate governance, contract negotiations. We had a relationship. And Dad didn't make changes without reason. Second, there'd been unusual board activity in January and February. 3 special meetings, all called by Dad, all marked executive sessions, CEO only. Minutes were sparse, just votes on internal restructuring and succession planning. All approved unanimously. But here's what bothered me. The board consisted of 7 people. Dad, me, Hammond, Linda, our head of engineering, and 2 outside directors. In January, one of those outside directors, a guy named Carl Winters, who'd been on the board since 2003, resigned. The minutes said personal reasons. He was replaced by someone named Patricia Drummond. I'd never heard of her. According to her bio in the files, she was a business consultant with an MBA from a school I'd never heard of. No relevant industry experience. I called Carl Winters. He was retired now, living in Arizona. "Adrian," he said when he answered. "I was sorry to hear about your father." "Thanks, Carl, I'm trying to understand some things. Why did you leave the board?" There was a long pause. "Your father asked me to." "Why?" He said he was restructuring, needed new perspectives. He offered me a generous separation package. I was 71, ready to step back anyway. I didn't ask questions. "Do you know Patricia Drummond?" "Never met her. Your father brought her in." "Adrian, is something wrong?" "I don't know yet." I looked up Patricia Drummond. She had a LinkedIn profile showing consultant work for various small companies. Her undergraduate degree was from a community college. Her MBA was from an online program. She was completely unqualified to serve on the board of a $70 million manufacturing company. But she'd voted yes on all of Dad's restructuring proposals in February. Including, I assumed, whatever plan had led to that will. I needed to talk to Strauss and Associates. I called on Monday and asked for Martin Strauss, the senior partner who'd handled Dad's work. "I'm sorry for your loss," Strauss said when we met. "Harrison was a good client and a good man." "Can you tell me why he moved his legal work to Philip Meredith?" Strauss's expression darkened. "I can't discuss client matters, but I can say that Harrison and I had a disagreement about the wisdom of certain estate planning decisions he was considering. I advised against them strongly. He chose to seek counsel elsewhere. What decisions? I can't say. Attorney-client privilege survives death. Even if I'm his son and a shareholder, even then, I'm sorry. I left feeling like I was circling something but couldn't quite see it. That's when I got the call. It was Tuesday afternoon. I was in my office on the 2nd floor, which was actually a converted storage room with no windows. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Adrian Caldwell?" "Yes. My name is James Barrington. I'm an attorney. I represented your father on certain matters. I'd like to meet with you as soon as possible." I thought Philip Meredith was my father's attorney. "Mr. Meredith handled some matters. I handled others. Are you available tomorrow at 10 a.m.? My office is downtown." "What is this about?" "Your inheritance. I have information that will be relevant to your situation." My heart started pounding. "What kind of information?" "Not over the phone. Tomorrow at 10. I'll send you the address." I barely slept that night. Who was James Barrington? Why had Dad used multiple lawyers? What information could possibly change anything when the will was legally solid? Barrington's office was in a tower 2 blocks from Meredith's. Top floor corner office, the kind of place where lawyers who handled serious money worked. His receptionist walked me back immediately. James Barrington was maybe 60, silver-haired, expensive suit. He stood up and shook my hand with the grip of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Thank you for coming, Adrian. I know this is a difficult time. You said you have information about my inheritance." "I do. Tell me, have you met with the board of Caldwell Industrial since your father's death?" "No. I'm no longer an officer. I haven't been invited. There's a board meeting scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m., emergency session called by Vivian. I assume you haven't been notified." "No, she's required to notify all shareholders of board meetings. That's a violation of corporate bylaws right there, but that's a minor issue." He opened a leather portfolio. "Adrian, your father came to me 14 months ago. He was concerned about his marriage." I sat forward. "Concerned how?" "He believed Vivian was having an affair. He hired a private investigator, gathered evidence, and came to me for advice on protecting his assets in case of divorce." My stomach dropped. "An affair? With who?" "Gregory Hammond, your CFO." The room seemed to tilt. Hammond, he'd been with the company for 12 years, was married with kids. Dad had trusted him completely. "How long?" I asked. "The investigator documented their relationship for approximately 6 months before your father came to me. It had likely been going on longer." "Did Dad confront them?" "No, and that's where this gets complicated. Your father was a strategic thinker. He didn't want a messy divorce that would destabilize the company. He wanted to protect his legacy and protect you, so we devised a plan." Barrington slid a document across the desk. It was a will, not the one Meredith had read. A different one. "This is your father's actual last will and testament, executed 13 months ago in my presence, witnessed and notarized. It leaves 70% controlling interest in Caldwell Industrial Solutions to you, along with immediate appointment to CEO. Vivian receives the house, $5 million and 20% non-voting shares. Gregory Hammond is specifically terminated for cause." I couldn't breathe. "Then what the hell was Meredith's will?" "A trap. Your father suspected Vivian and Hammond might try something. So he had Meredith draft a fake will, gave it to them deliberately, made a show of signing it with witnesses Vivian had access to. He wanted to see what they'd do. You're saying my father faked his own will. The will Meredith has is real in the sense that it's properly executed. But your father created a second, more recent will with me that supersedes it. Both are valid documents, but under law, the most recent valid will is the one that controls the estate. Why didn't you come forward immediately after he died?" "Because your father gave me specific instructions. I was to wait until Vivian made her move, document any fraudulent actions, and then reveal the real will at the moment of maximum impact. He wanted to catch them in the act of stealing from him." "The board meeting on Friday." "Exactly. Vivian has called an emergency meeting to approve several major actions. Sale of company assets, executive compensation changes, and authorization for her to negotiate a potential acquisition of Caldwell Industrial by Vanguard Manufacturing Group." "She's selling the company?" "Planning to. Vanguard has apparently offered $85 million. Vivian and Hammond would receive massive retention bonuses. You'd be bought out at market value for your shares, roughly $24 million, which sounds generous until you realize you're losing control of your father's company. I felt rage building in my chest. "How long have you known about this?" "Your father died before he could tell me his timeline. I've been monitoring the situation, waiting for the right moment." "This board meeting, is it? She's overplayed her hand." "What do? We go to the board meeting. You, as a 30% shareholder, have the right to attend even if not invited. I will present the valid will, which immediately transfers control to you. The previous will becomes void. Vivian's authority as CEO evaporates, and then we discuss what happens next. Can she fight this?" "She can try. But this will is ironclad, more recent, and executed with meticulous documentation. Your father worked with me for months on this. We have video of him signing it, medical records showing full mental capacity, detailed notes on his intentions. She'll lose. I looked at the will in my hands, my father's signature at the bottom, dated 14 months ago, notarized, witnessed by people I didn't recognize. Why did he do it this way? I asked. Why not just divorce her? Why not tell me? Because he wanted proof. If he divorced her or confronted them, they could have claimed anything. Denied it, said the evidence was fabricated. This way they convicted themselves, they showed their true intentions, and your father documented every bit of it. Did he know he was going to die? No, but he was smart enough to plan for the possibility. Your father thought 5 moves ahead, Adrian, always. Friday came. I arrived at the company at 1:45 p.m., James Barrington beside me. Vivian's assistant tried to stop us in the lobby. I'm sorry, Mr. Caldwell, but this is a closed board meeting. I'm a shareholder, I said. I have a legal right to attend. We walked past her. The boardroom was on the 4th floor where it had always been. Through the glass walls, I could see them already assembled. Vivian at the head of the table, Hammond beside her. Linda, the engineering director, Patricia Drummond, the other outside director, all of them with documents spread out mid-discussion. I opened the door. They all turned. Vivian's face went pale. Adrian, this is a private meeting. Under corporate bylaws, all shareholders must be notified of board meetings. You violated that. This meeting could be invalidated on that basis alone. We're discussing sensitive matters. You're discussing selling my father's company. I'm here to represent my interest. Hammond stood up. Adrian, maybe we should talk about this privately. Sit down, Gregory. Barrington entered behind me. Good afternoon. My name is James Barrington. I'm the attorney who handled Harrison Caldwell's estate. Planning, I'm here to present information relevant to this board's proceedings. We already have counsel, Vivian said. Philip Meredith represented Harrison's estate. Mr. Meredith represented certain limited matters. I represented others. Specifically, I hold Harrison Caldwell's last will and testament, dated March 14th of last year, which supersedes all previous wills. The room went silent. That's impossible, Vivian said. Philip has the will. Mr. Meredith has a will. Not the most recent will. Barrington placed a leather folder on the table. This document, properly executed and notarized, makes the following distributions. 70% controlling interest in Caldwell Industrial Solutions to Adrian Caldwell, who is immediately appointed Chief Executive Officer. 20% non-voting shares to Vivian Caldwell. The house and $5 million to Vivian Caldwell. $3 million in trust to Claire Caldwell. And specific termination for cause of Gregory Hammond. Hammond's face went white. This is insane. The will also includes an attached letter from Harrison Caldwell explaining his reasoning. He discovered that his wife and CFO were engaged in an extramarital affair and were planning to manipulate his estate for personal gain. He created this will to protect his legacy and his son. You can't prove any of that, Vivian said, but her voice shook. I have 6 months of surveillance reports, photographs, hotel records, and text messages that Harrison compiled before his death. I also have documentation of this board meeting's agenda, which shows you planning to sell the company at below market value to Vanguard Manufacturing, a company where Gregory Hammond's brother-in-law is VP of Acquisitions. The other board members were staring at Hammond. Linda Vasquez looked like she might be sick. Harrison knew everything, Barrington continued. He watched you manipulate Patricia Drummond onto this board by paying her $50,000. He watched you push out Carl Winters. He watched you draft the fake will with Meredith, who was recommended to Harrison by you, Vivian. Harrison let you think you'd won because he wanted to document every crime you committed. I want to speak to my attorney, Vivian said. That's your right. But this will is valid and supersedes the previous one. As of this moment, Adrian Caldwell is the majority shareholder and CEO of this company. Your authority is revoked. Vivian stood up so fast her chair fell over. You can't do this. We'll fight this. You can try, but I should mention that Harrison also documented financial irregularities. Gregory, you've been paying yourself bonuses through a shell company for the last 18 months, roughly $400,000. That's embezzlement. Harrison filed a report with the state attorney general 2 weeks before his death. They're already investigating. Hammond stood up and walked out, just left. Didn't say a word. Vivian looked at me, really looked at me for the first time since this started. Your father was a vindictive bastard. My father was a man who protected what he built, I said. You should have known that. She walked out. Patricia Drummond followed her. The remaining board members sat in stunned silence. I need votes, I said finally. All in favor of accepting the valid will and appointing me as CEO. Linda raised her hand, then the engineering director, then the remaining outside director. Motion carries, I said. The next 2 months were brutal. Vivian hired lawyers and challenged the will. Barrington destroyed them in court. The surveillance evidence was overwhelming. The text messages were damning. There was a conversation where Vivian explicitly told Hammond they'd be set for life once they sold the company. The judge ruled in my favor. The previous will was invalidated. I became CEO and majority owner. Hammond was fired and criminally charged. He eventually pled guilty to embezzlement and got 3 years. Lost his family in the process. Vivian got exactly what the real will specified. The house, 5 million, 20% non-voting shares. She moved back to Oregon. We've never spoken since. Linda Vasquez stayed on as COO. She'd had no idea what Vivian and Hammond were doing, and she'd been sick about it once she found out. We rebuilt the executive team with people I trusted. I found the video Dad made with Barrington when he signed the real will. Barrington gave me a copy. I've watched it maybe 100 times. Adrian, Dad says on the video. He looks tired but focused. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone and things went according to plan. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you what was happening. I needed Vivian to think she'd won so she'd reveal her true intentions. I needed proof, not suspicions. By now you know everything. You know about the affair, the planning, the manipulation. And now you understand why I did this the way I did. I taught you to think strategically, to see the whole board, not just the next move. This was my final lesson. Protect what matters. Never trust people who smile while planning your destruction. And always have a backup plan. I built Caldwell Industrial for you. It's yours now. Make it something even bigger than I could imagine. I love you, son. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry I won't be there to see what you do next. The company is doing well now. We're approaching 90 million in revenue. I promoted 3 people from within who embody what Dad built. Integrity, competence, loyalty. I come to the office every day and sit in the CEO chair and think about how Dad spent his last year setting this up. How he must have known there was a chance he wouldn't live to see it through, but he planned for that too. Sometimes I wonder if the stress of it all contributed to his heart attack. If maybe he'd still be here if he'd just divorced Vivian and moved on. But then I think about what she and Hammond would have done if Dad had died without that second will. They'd have stolen everything. They'd have sold the company and walked away with millions while destroying what Dad spent 30 years building. He couldn't let that happen. So he didn't. I keep the real will in my office, framed on the wall behind my desk. Next to it is a photo of Dad in the original machine shop, back in 1989, covered in grease, grinning at the camera. Young and hungry and building something from nothing. That's the legacy I'm protecting now. Not just the company, but the principle. Build something worth defending, defend it strategically, and never assume people are who they claim to be. My father taught me that lesson the hard way. It cost him time, effort, and probably years off his life. But he made sure I'd have the tools to carry on, and I will. For as long as I can, I'll make sure Caldwell Industrial stands for what he wanted it to stand for. Quality work, honest dealing, and taking care of people who take care of you. Some people say you can't trust anyone. I don't believe that. But I do believe trust has to be earned, verified, and protected. My father trusted the wrong person and paid a price. But he was smart enough to make sure I wouldn't pay that price too. That's the difference between being vindictive and being strategic. Vindictive is lashing out in anger. Strategic is building a trap so perfect that your enemies convict themselves. Dad was never vindictive. He was just better at chess than everyone else. And because of that, I'm sitting here today, running the company that should have been stolen from me, working with people who deserve to be here, building something that will outlast all of us. That's not revenge. That's justice. And sometimes, when the dead plan well enough, justice comes exactly when it's supposed to. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe. Justice is always worth fighting for, even when it seems impossible. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? How did it turn out? Thanks for listening. This is Cheating Story Exposed, and we'll see you in the next story.